Hey folks, Steve Bird here. Welcome back. As I mentioned in recent days, we've gotten rid of all of our cattle, all except for one Gigantor Holstein that's a pet, and converted back to sheep, Dorpers and Katahdin. And we're planning on giving it our best go at a real commercial sheep farm on this property. The property, one of the reasons we got away from sheep in the first place, this property is all fenced for cattle. This electric fence here is one that we put up. Most of it's barbed wire, 5-strand barbed wire. 5 strands where the branches haven't taken some of it out. And where this is completely adequate to keep sheep in, not as I wouldn't use electric ribbon for a property line boundary fence. If I said sheep just now, I meant to keep cattle in. You can use this fine to separate pastures, but I would never use this for a property line boundary fence. It's just a little too fragile with the plastic clips and the strands of the electric ribbon. Any little branch that fell on it would take it out. But it's good for, separating pastures and keeping cows off of your solar panels, stuff like that. So 3 strands of electric ribbon, and then along the bottom we've got 1 strand of barbed wire. What that 1 strand of barbed wire is oftentimes they would reach underneath to eat the grass on the other side, because the grass is always greener on the other side. And they would inevitably touch the back of their neck to that bottom strand, and then they would panic and jump, and they would take out the whole fence, just rip it all down. So the 1 strand of barbed wire across the bottom limits their ability to reach their head under, and if the back of their neck does touch something, it touches the barbed wire instead of the electric. And we found that that's saved a lot of fence repairs. So, again, while wholly adequate for an inside the property pasture boundary, it does nothing for sheep. So in the past, we've tried electric fence with sheep, and I know some people use it and the sheep get trained to it, but we found that especially in the winter when they had their heavy wool on, because hair sheep, it would be too much insulation and it wouldn't shock them at all. Unless they touched their nose or ear to it, it wouldn't do anything. So they would push through to try to eat on the other side and end up accidentally getting out. So we're going to convert all this to sheep fence, the Redbrand sheep fence. That's the 4x4 squares from the bottom to the top. And that fencing is heavy. If a normal roll, a 330-foot roll of field wire is this big around, the 330-foot roll of sheep fence is this big around and weighs twice as much, because it's the density of the squares to keep them from stretching their heads through. For one, to keep them getting stuck, and for 2, to keep dogs and other things from killing them through the fence, which can happen as they're sitting there eating grass. It leaves them exposed. Especially a lot of times they'll squeeze their head through and have a hard time getting it back out. So if a dog seizes on that opportunity, not much you can do about it. So this fence is designed with 4x4 squares so that they can't do that. So it makes it a lot heavier because there's twice the metal in each roll as there is in the regular field fencing. So with that in mind, and with my back constantly reminding me that I'm not a young man anymore, we purchased this guy. It says County Line on it. We did get it from Tractor Supply, but it's made by Tartar. It's the same thing as the one labeled Tartar. And they're around $480 at Tractor Supply. They're hard to get right now with all the stuff that's on back order. We had to visit numerous Tractor Supplies to find one that had one in stock, and we seemed to get the last one around us. But this thing is magic for you if you're doing a lot of work by yourself, and especially with these heavier rolls of fence. I used to ride the struggle bus and would just roll those things out by hand. You can never get the fence quite as tight as you want doing that. Plus, it just wears you out and takes a lot longer. So with this rod, there's a hole in the bottom down there, and there's a hole in the top here. So you set your fence roll in. This rod goes down through the top and through the fence roll into the hole in the bottom. And then that allows the fence roll to spin so that you can unwind the fence in a neat and orderly by yourself manner. And once you get the fence rolled out, you can tie it to the first post and just drive the tractor and it'll sit there and unspool itself. And then once you get it rolled out and you want to stretch it tight to clip it and tack it, nail it, whatever you're going to do to secure it to the types of posts that you're using on down the row, you simply remove this pin, and this arm, if the fence is coming through here, goes down on the fence, and you've got these bolts here that you run through. They go through these holes, and it hangs onto the fence nice and tight. And then you can just tug the tractor forward. The spool will no longer unspool, and from here back the fence is pulled tight, so you can go through clipping, nailing, attaching your fence. It's magic. It allows you to do you know, a big laborious job by yourself. And a lot of times it's just me and Monica doing everything out here, so we greatly appreciate anything that can reduce our pain and suffering while we get the work done. And this thing is, if you can afford one, it's worth its weight in gold. But we got a lot of fencing to do, so there was no more riding the struggle bus for us. We're going to do it right this time. So, going to film some clips of us actually using this, so that you can see it in action and see how the fence roll spools off of here. And well, let's see what you think about that. So, thanks a lot, and check this out. So another device that we have found is worth its weight in gold, which I'm sure everybody already knows this. An auger. That's the way to go. I have played that game before using post hole diggers. I've played it extensively, and nothing quite beats the auger. This is also a Tractor Supply branded auger. I'm not sure who actually makes this one. I know a lot of people give these a hard time because it's not as sturdy and heavy duty as some of the more expensive brands that may be well over $1,000 bucks. But for the price, this has served us well. We've actually had this one for about 5 years. We've got this smaller bit that we like to use for post holes that we're going to tamp in, and we've got a 12-inch bit that we have used extensively for doing concrete piers in the ground for foundations, for outbuildings and stuff. And it works great for that. You can only get this is about the maximum depth you can get, but they have extensions you can get to put between the bit and the gearbox to get deeper. This one, like I said, it's been trouble-free for us. We've dug many holes. We've loaned it out. Other people have used it a lot. So I think unless you're running one of those big, like 2-foot auger bits that it's probably not built for, if you get good service out of it, just keep gearbox oil, keep gear oil in the gearbox, and things like that. Keep your U-joints and the drive shaft lubed. And we've used it a lot, and we've gotten a lot out of it. So on this project, we've added, since we're stretching tight all this sheep fencing, we've added a series of wooden posts that are braced off of each other in all the corners and the high spots where the terrain go up the hills. So we have wooden posts at the top so we can stretch it down both sides. So we've strategically placed wooden posts in areas for the tightening of the fence, and then we've got T-posts in between that's going to be clipped to. So we've used this all day yesterday, drilling holes. So we've had it about 5 years. Not sure what the price they're up to now, but it too is worth its weight in gold. So between the auger and the fence stretcher, and a front end loader to pull posts out of the ground when you need to move them, it turns a big laborious chore into something that one person, preferably two, but one person could easily handle. So anyway, thanks for joining us today, and we greatly appreciate you checking in on us again. We'll keep updating you with these little projects that we're doing along the way, expanding our sheep paddocks. We're building them one at a time, and we're going to expand the flock as we expand the paddocks. We're looking forward to it. We're excited. We already feel better around here going back to sheep like we should have been in the first place. I should have never stepped away from God's plan. Hey folks, this is actually an edited section of the video. Some of you may have saw that I'd released this video before, but I had actually misspoke in the video And thankfully, a very polite and kind YouTube viewer, Mako Patrol 22, mentioned it. I don't want to leave any. There's enough misinformation out there these days. I don't want to be adding any, so I wanted to edit this clip and make a correction to kind of show you how it's supposed to work. So these bolts are basically a big bolt with a crank handle, so you don't have to use tools. These come from the factory, installed on this side, coming all the way through. That's just a storage and transportation location for them. When you're this is the position you're in when you're actually rolling out the fence. So the arm's off to the side, you've got your pin in it holding it in place, and the fencing pulls right here as the tractor drives forward. The fencing will be attached to a pole, the tractor drives forward, unspools it. Now when you get to where you want to clamp it down and hang on to it so you can tug forward to tighten your fence before you attach it to your posts, the intended design is that you bring this in and you essentially clamp off the fence, and the main structure and this arm kind of makes a clamp, squeezes the fence. This runs through this side and then engages this welded on nut here and comes out this side. So as you crank this in, it ends up squeezing this together and holds onto the fence so that you can tug it. Now, the problem with that I had, for one, this is a pain in the butt to get that in there and lined up and started. And if you clamp down too tightly, you end up putting kinks in your fencing as this metal comes together. So if you don't get it tight enough, though, if the fence slips, it slips kind of in this manner, and you end up mangling some of the fence with the bolt that's traveling through. So the little quick and easy workaround that I came up with that I like a lot better is I take 2 C-clamps, and then I can just throw them on there and tighten them down. And I've got another one up there I would put on the bottom. So between those 2 C-clamps, I can get the amount of squeeze I want to hang onto the fence properly. And then if I do have slippage, if it slips through because I don't have it tight enough, there's no bolt traveling through in 3 different places to hang up on the fence and bend it and mangle it. And it's just faster. The act of putting that C-clamp on and tightening it down is phenomenally faster than working those bolts in. Those things, they're good for their intended purpose, but this is my choice going forward in the future. So all in all, this thing was worth its weight in gold for us. This is the end of a spool. There's just kind of the scrap that was left over. If you remember the clip, the part of this video where I showed the tractor pulling forward with a spool on it, the spool pretty much occupies this whole space. It's heavy, and that would have been really difficult to do by hand without your tractor being able to haul the heavy weight for you. So anyway, we had a lot of lessons learned with this. This was the first time we'd used it. We'd always did things the hard way with fencing before, and this was worth its weight in gold. So appreciate your time watching. We hope you got something out of it. You know, share any experiences that you've had with these as well in the comments. If you got a better way of doing things, like I said, it's the first time I've used this. Didn't come with any directions, and I didn't know anybody that had one. So just kind of had to stare at it for a while and figure it out. And with the help of some other folks here on YouTube, able to figure it out right. So again, thanks a lot. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you again real soon.